It's the October energy update. Get yourself comfortable. Welcome to it. The lower timeline, it's in the process of drifting away. And the higher timeline is in the process of bolstering. And the light workers that were in the in-between of those two timelines are busy going back to their rightful timeline. Phew, there's so much going on. It's a massive breakthrough of a month. So let's talk about everything that's going on in October energetically. The in-between is the space, literally exactly that, between the two streams of consciousness that are in the process of splitting into two separate timelines, which will eventually become two frequencies, two planets, two worlds, totally different from each other. This is why so often you look at somebody and you scratch your head and you say, are we even from the same world? Well, you were born to the same world, but you're not going to the same world necessarily. Right now, the in-between space that was heavily populated in the month of September. That in-between space is being cleared out, not completely, cleared out, meaning the light workers who were manning their station in that in-between, they have been given their marching orders and said, okay, go back to the higher timeline now. We've got this. Why were they there in the first place? Because so many from the old or the lower timeline were needing to jump ship, wanting to move over to the higher timeline, and that was a service position. The service position was to make themselves the invitations, the bridges, so that those in the lower timeline had a landing station, somebody to carry them over to the other side, which is into the higher realms of the higher timeline. Can you believe it? The higher realms, doesn't that sound like it belongs, it's a home to somebody else, it can't be our home? Well, we're beginning to step into those higher realms right now. It doesn't feel that way because mentally our faculties still belong to the old conditioning of the lower timeline. We're going to talk about, however, the miracles that are coming through, and you're going to see how conditioning prevents you from receiving them. One of the things that happened in the in-between for the light workers that were in that in-between place, which was the majority of light workers. You knew you were there because you felt discombobulated, like more so than usual. You felt dreamy, hazy, limbo, void, in between, nothing made sense. Grief could come up, lots of emotions. Why do emotions come up in the in-between? Because you're unplugged, in a sense, from your timeline. You're unplugged from reality. You're in this weird limbo space. So surely you're not going to feel much? No, it's the opposite. Because you're not in time, you're not in the brain. Because you're not in the brain, you are way more in the being and you're way more energetically primed. So yes, a lot of purging took place there. However, one of the many gifts from being in that in-between, because yes, there are gifts for being in the in-between. It's not just, I'm here in service, meet the light worker. I'm here in service to those on the lower timeline. Hurry up, you folk. It was really about the gifts are all round. This wasn't a chore. This was service to others, which is also, therefore, service to self. Service begets service, love begets love. And so one of the things that we received in that in-between was a massive awakening of Christ consciousness, a monumental awakening to the frequency of the 144,000, the Christ consciousness, which is love, compassion, forgiveness, truth. It's the brilliance of a golden divinity that is Christ consciousness, and that was taken into embodiment by the light workers in the in-between space. Now in October, they step into the higher timeline way more solidified. They step in bolstered because now there's so many more of them. That's also one of the reasons why we will permanently have light workers manning the in-between between now and ascension, which means from time to time, you're going to feel, whoa, I'm hazy, I am unplugged, I don't know what day of the week it is. Now, look, on any given day, I don't know what day of the week it is. I'm talking about more than usual, right? More ditzy than usual, more limbo-like than usual. That's how you know you're in the in-between, and you're generally there a couple of days, some of us a couple of weeks, sometimes on rare occasions. a couple of months, but that would be for the very rare light worker. As we come into the higher timeline now, we come in, like I said, bolstered with less apology, more clarity, more focus, more direction, more ability to move forward, less holding back, less shutting down, more voice activated, more power present. Miracle number 1 was receiving the Christ consciousness there in the in-between. Miracle number 2, as we step into the higher timeline, there's a very big whoosh, a very big wave of clarifying, cleansing, clearing energy. That's the universe meeting us where we have met ourselves. This is how it works, you guys. When we meet ourselves in higher frequency states of being, which often is painful, requires a sorrow to surface or a grief to come out or a purging to happen, a facing of the shadow, etc. All of that happens. We've met ourselves at a deeper level. Now the universe can meet us at a deeper level. Be very careful not to go too deeply into analysis. Don't go too much into the head. I always tell my online community, you can't be spiritual in the head. You can't be spiritual in your brain. Spirituality is what happens in the being, not the brain. When you try to be spiritual in your head, you're spinning yourself a story. This isn't truth. Love is not something that your brain can feel. It's something your brain can make linear to put words to understand, but don't let that rob you of the experience. The experiential level, the energetic level of reality, that's what's coming online for us now. So the cleansing wave, it's a feeling. It's a feeling of an opening. It's a feeling of clarifying, of purifying. You'll reach it in meditation. You'll reach it in presence, connection, stillness. You'll reach it in energy work. That's why so much of my focus is on those places. Join the Plasma Light Tribe anytime that you want to go into that depth of energy work, because that is how you receive that cleansing light. Get out of your own way. Get out of your own brain. Doesn't mean that you're going to be stupid. It means you're going to tap into higher wisdom, less linearity. The brain's always important. You're always going to draw on it. It's just not going to be the center of who you are anymore. Now, apology. Do you remember moments back I said, oh yeah, we're landing on the new timeline with all of this bolstering and with less apology. Why was there apology in the first place? What was that about? As a species, humanity's been essentially asleep behind the wheel in an unconsciousness. And this is how it works. This is how a timeline elevates. There are agitators who irritate the heck out of others, who are in that slumber, in that low frequency, and just humming along in a mutual snore zone. Then suddenly the light workers come along and they put the lights on and they irritate the sleeping, and they're called divisive. You're so divisive. You're so polarizing. Why are you creating division everywhere? And this is a strange answer that you wouldn't expect to hear me say, but it's true. Light workers do create division, but here's how. They create division by being a higher frequency in a lower frequency. So the timeline, those that are ready to gear up into the higher consciousness will be catalyzed by the light workers. Those who are threatened by it, those are the ones who will call names and say, wait, you're making me wake up and I don't know that I want to or that I'm ready to. And those are the ones who will project all sorts of blame and all sorts of name calling towards the light workers. So it's not divisive for the sake of creating chaos and upheaval. It is the nature of the light worker. You know, all of those things that I look back into my childhood, don't know about you, but I look back to the names that I was called. Kerry, why can't you just be easy, man? Why can't you just fit in like everybody else? Why can't you be like everybody else? Why must you question everything? Why must everything be an issue with you? There we go. This is so much of what the light workers were designed, destined to do. So we held a sense of apology. We held a sense of sorry for being here. Sorry for upsetting your sleep. Sorry for messing with the snore zone that you were in. And the light workers have been tiptoeing. around those who were slumbering, those who were sleeping. That has stopped now. Because there's an awareness in the light workers that says, we're in our zone now. We're in this higher realm. No, we're not totally separate from the old or the lower reality. We're not totally separate from it. But here is what's happening. The drifting of the old, the drifting of the lower timeline. Let me create the visual for you. This is what it looks like. Imagine that we're out at sea. And as we're out at sea, let's imagine that we're on two ships, appropriate for being at sea. And let's imagine that the two streams of consciousness splitting into the two timelines, showing up in our analogy now as two ships, they're pulling so far apart from each other, and that lower timeline, it's drifting off, and as it does, it's kind of foggy, hazy. You know what I mean? It's a little bit difficult to see. You can be in the same room, you guys, as somebody that's in the lower timeline. You can be right next to them. But it's like you're not registering each other. And you might say, well, you're not hearing each other, or you're not in alignment. But it's more than that. You almost can't hear them. They almost can't hear you. They're becoming so distant. So you may find in your relationships that there is distance, but it's comfortable. Isn't that weird? It's distance, but it's like, well, it's meant to be, or it's somehow nice, it's somehow comfortable, it's somehow okay. Yes, of course, because those choosing the lower alignment, that is their alignment. That is their happy place. That is way more comfortable for them to be in than the higher timeline where they're continually triggered. As the lower timeline drifts away, my darlings, there's a weird thing that happens. If it wasn't for technology, like as in artificial technology and things like media and things like scrolling and things like people WhatsApping you at 10 o'clock at night just to say, hey, how are you doing? If it wasn't for the intervention of that kind of technology, we would be almost unaware of them. Ascension would actually be a lot easier in the sense that these two worlds wouldn't really have that much of an opportunity to interact, which is a lot more peaceful for those two worlds. Because the alignment now is coming in where the higher beings of the higher timeline are wanting to hang out with each other more, and they're getting more from each other. And equally, the same happens on the lower timeline. It's not good and bad. It's not right and wrong. It's not the good guys and the bad guys. It is simply two separate streams of consciousness. And they're evolving. The one, remember I said it's drifting away? Think of it like this. As it drifts away, it's going to take another circle around the harbor before it comes into 5D. Because it will eventually, everything eventually comes home. It can only. It's just taking a detour, which is to say another ascension cycle. That's multiple lifetimes until they're ready to shift gear, so to speak, and shift into 5D. So be very cautious with your scrolling now. Be very discerning, be very wise about where you put your focus, where you put your time, because the more you put it in the lower timeline, the more drained you're going to feel, the more strained you're going to feel, the more strange you're going to feel. It's just, it's going to be a very jarring experience because you're aligned to higher frequency, but you're continually seeing lower, and something's got to give. So allow yourself to really enjoy the higher alignment and just be there without feeling the apology, be there without the guilt, be there without thinking, but what about everybody else? Everybody else is fine. They're on their cruise ship. They're listening to their music and they're dancing and they're having their celebrations, and that's their alignment. Our job is to honor their choice, honor their truth until such time that they want to jump ship and swim over. We're there in the in-between. At least multiple light workers are there to swim them over into the higher timeline. We've got this covered. But for right now, you do more for humanity by more firmly grounding yourself into the higher timeline than you've ever given yourself permission to before. Stay open to miracles. Let your heart feel the love right now as I say to you, darling, sweetheart, from right here, in my heart, all the way to yours. I send you so much love, and I hold you in so much love. Just take a moment, just a moment. To let it in. The head is buzzing, all the information. But now it's time for you to come into the body. That's your zone, that's your home. That's where you belong. That's where the light is coming online. Speak to you soon. Subscribe, like. Makes a difference, you know that. Leave a comment. Speak to you the next video. Oh my gosh, stay tuned. It's going to be about the dragons. Bye-bye for now.